Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. I've been out for a couple of days because of my birthday, but now I am back, so let's get back into the fray and see what is happening. The situation on the front line is tense. Russians have regrouped, they've gathered some resources, and they're pushing back to Ukrainians all across the front line. Most notable areas are around Robotine, around Avdiivka, around Bakhmut, and also today, not today, but like a couple days ago, around Terny. Ukraine is holding these areas, but they are falling back. Again, shortage of resources. We're going to touch about this later. But one of the major changes that have been ongoing in the recent days, and it's very painful to talk about, is the situation in the city of Kharkiv. Now, I explained in my previous video that city of Kharkiv, not the previous, but the video before, that the city of Kharkiv, Russians don't really have a chance to take it, no matter how much they try. Even if we disregard major help for Ukrainians in the war, if we say that Ukrainians will be trying to defend themselves or with support with just some closest allies in Europe, it will still be pretty close to impossible. Just the price that Russia will have to pay for it will be astronomical. However, it does not change the fact that a lot of pain is being inflicted on Ukrainians. And right now, major pain is being inflicted on the city of Kharkiv. Now, city of Kharkiv has been on the front lines for this whole time. So it's been heavily shot at from the multi-missile launch systems, and it's been constantly bombarded before by the airplanes, and now airplanes are at it again. Bombs are raining down on Kharkiv. Kids are running around in fear for their lives. It's an indiscriminate bombing of the city. There is no redeeming qualities about this. Like, it's not like there is like a factories that are being precisely targeted. Russia is just targeting civilians. They're targeting civilian infrastructure, electricity networks, heating, everything. I know heating is not as relevant, but it's going to be relevant for the next winter. They want to basically create city of Kharkiv, to turn the life inside of a city of Kharkiv inside out, to turn it in a war zone. And knowing Russia, the only way that they are looking forward to advance to the city is to erase it to the ground. It's an absolute tragedy. The city of Kharkiv is 1.4 million people. It's a heavy urban center, and it's a city I've been to many times, and I love it very dearly. And it pains me to see what Russia is doing. Russia is an absolute monster. War crime is not even starting to describe how awful is what they're doing. But we're continuing because Ukraine is responding to Russia, and we are seeing a huge game changer coming up from Ukrainian side. The drone technology that Ukrainians have been adapting has been marvelous. They have been executing both on the naval drones, and now we're seeing more and more developments in the sky drones. An unprecedented attack happened recently on the Russian airfields, deep inside the Russian territory. We're talking about 1,000+ kilometers. Ukraine is claiming that they have in development drones that can fly 3,000 kilometers. Nothing is becoming safe for Russia. Everything is going to be coming under threat. And Russia has enjoyed a lot of this benefits because they're so large and they have so in-depth situation where they can store their production facilities and store long-term storages way back from the front line. But Ukraine is doing their job. They're increasing the number of their drones. They're increasing the distance of these drones. Will this be a game changer on its own? Absolutely not. There is not going to be any game changers. However, the less secure Russia feels, the less work they need to do. Even relocating the air defense systems to protect these targets far away from the front line is benefiting Ukraine. So it's good news all around. Then we talked a little bit about Terni situation. And it was a massive assault just recently in the area around Terni. To show you on a deep state map, if we kind of go to the general overview, it is located right over here. This was the area. There are videos for this assault. So again, just join our Discord server and check out the videos. I cannot show them on YouTube for obvious reasons. But beyond the attacks, we've seen a new interesting pattern of attacks that Russia is doing. This has been the first video that kind of got the attention. What we see here is on this video, again, video will be in a Discord server. We see a single tank, and on that tank, you see people riding it. That tank hits a mine, and then these people, they scatter away, and they run to the nearest, some kind of a concealment area. And this tank has 23 people riding it. 23. That's a full unit. And why is this happening? Well, the main part is that Russians are basically abusing Ukrainian situation with the ammo shortages. How come? When Ukrainians would see, for example, a column of vehicles driving, it would be like a red alarm. Like things, all hands on deck, the enemy is attacking. We need to have as much response as possible. So all of the drone teams that were, for example, sleeping are getting called up back to the positions. They're preparing their defenses, and it's very, very important. However, if it's just one vehicle, there might be a limited response to this that is ongoing. And in this one vehicle that was riding through, for example, field from some angle that is not normally controlled by Ukrainian forces, if it gets through, if it gets to Ukrainian position, then this whole 20 plus people just disembark this vehicle. And imagine if it would be like a, I don't know, machine gunner's position somewhere with a little bit fortifications. There would be, I don't know, like 4 or 5 Ukrainian defenders in that position, which would be okay to hold on against some kind of attack with proper support. But then suddenly they have like a tank and 20 people on top of it just scrambling towards you. And they're basically trying to exploit. Now, this has been already acknowledged to be so-called banzai attack in Russian-speaking medias. So take it with a grain of salt, especially if you are from Japan. You might take offense to it. Please don't. Russians, like, if you want to take offense at Russians. Preferably just, I don't know, donate to some drones, and we're going to have some options for that. But going on forward with the Russian engineering, a great new design for a tank armor. Now, we've seen the evolution of the coup about how to defend themselves from the drones, and we're getting to a situation that the Russians basically are making some kind of siege engine protections like in the medieval times. Now, is this useful? Potentially, yes. So we should laugh at this, but we should not discard this completely. In current warfare, tanks are used, as you can see here, something that can either just move forward, but also they're often used as a just semi-stationary and or semi-mobile artillery platform, like short to medium range artillery platform. So the fact that it drives, the fact that it has some protection is nothing to discard, but it's funny nonetheless. There is a Twitter user by the name of Herder. Now, he uses a lot of open source numbers. So a lot of the open source numbers that he presents about the Russian casualty losses, the usage of shells and other statistics in the war, I disregard because a lot of them are being like, he doesn't really filter information. However, I like this chart and I want to share it with you because on this chart, instead of showing the absolute numbers, what is being showed is ratios. And we can just look at this and we can see as the war progresses and as Ukraine is getting new capabilities, is rebuilding their production, is getting supplies from the allies and so on, we see Ukraine getting bigger capabilities of destroying Russian machine. I talk a lot on this channel that Russian machine is incredibly long. Like they have a lot of weapons, they have a lot of firepower, mostly from the Soviet stockpiles, but it's not infinite. So Ukraine is getting more supplies. Now we see a dip here at the end, mostly because the US supplies are not coming in anymore, and now only some of the longer term contracts that are being delivered to Ukraine. Nonetheless, Ukraine is rebuilding capacity to inflict pain on Russians, and specifically looking at this graph, that's why we must never consider that's like, oh my god, everything is lost, Ukraine is losing it, so on. No, it's not. Ukraine is inflicting serious pain to Russians, incredible pain. I've looked recently at the numbers, that the Ukrainian stuff, and you might argue with the absolute numbers about the personnel killed, the number of vehicles destroyed, whatever. But when you just consider, even if you start cutting it like in half or divided by 3, which I think it's way too much. I think it's not accurate, but not to that degree. But the numbers are staggering. Like, for example, take like infantry fighting vehicles. I believe right now it's 13,000. Like, imagine I don't know how much armored vehicles there are in your country's military, but even for something like US, losing 10,000 vehicles is a major impact. So Russia is burning through their resources. Their goal is very simple. They are seeing the lack of decisiveness on the part of the Western allies because of all of the election campaign and so on. And they want to push as much as they can. They're getting all of their resources activated. So the next year and a half, 2 years are going to be critical. But after that, the Russian machine just cannot keep up. It will break, and we will help break it. And if we're talking about breaking the Russian war machine, the most crucial thing is going to be happening in the US Congress. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson is obviously under pressure. The Micro Johnson here, he plays nice games with delaying tactics. He's been saying that this is going to be some kind of new bill that will be coming to support Ukraine. I truly believe that it's all nonsense and it's all delaying tactics just to make sure that it's like, how do you say, probable deniability or something like this. You can correct me in the comments how to select it how to say it correctly. But he's just playing games. He's trying to delay support for Ukraine as much as we can. MAGA is really aiming to destroy as many Ukrainians to let Putin win. And I know there are some people that are still trying to defend. Like, I understand that a lot of people don't like Joe Biden. He's not my candidate of choice, for example, as well. But I think that we need to understand that the support for Ukraine is not coming not because of Joe Biden. The support of Ukraine is not coming only specifically because of MAGA Republicans, the extreme MAGA Republicans, not the normal kind of Republicans, the extreme fucking wing of Republicans. If you want to get support for Ukraine down, the only way that, if you're a US citizen, the only way you can do it is if you vote blue in November. There is no choice here for you. And I'm sorry to say that in a democracy, you don't really have a choice in this case. Because the alternative is we're going to be thrust in a fires of war. And Trump's plan has been supposedly leaked. I mean, Orban has already talked about this plan that Trump doesn't want to supply weapons to Ukraine and therefore pressure Ukraine to cede territory to Russia. And now the Washington Post comes up with this article now. Washington Post, I don't trust the mainstream media. It's more to illustrate the point. And I mean, what can we say here? Firstly, I want us to understand that this is the same problem that I always underscore, is that the cause and effect, the causality here is mixed up places. It's not that Ukraine fights because we are sending them weapons. It's that Ukrainians are fighting and we are helping them with our supplies because we have vested interest. Support for Ukraine is not a donation, it's not a charity. It's an investment in our own security. Therefore, someone saying, okay, I will not invest in Ukraine, ergo, I will not invest in our own security as much. I don't want to oppose Russia, for example, because that's what Trump's saying here. But it doesn't mean that Ukrainians will stop resisting. Again, I will point you to the that even with the diminishing ratios and so on, Ukrainians are still resisting, and they will be resisting because there is no other options. Russia wants to eradicate Ukrainians, commit genocide. Ukrainians understand that it's the whole country is at war. They are not gonna stop. It's not dependent on whether or not Trump is supporting or not. It says more about the America rather than it says about Ukraine or influences Ukraine. And then there was the interview with Alexander Cersi. Now, the interview itself is kind of bland. I'll leave the link in description. You can read. It's in Ukrainian, but you can auto-translate. I highlighted some of these things, but in general, it's relatively bland. Like, he talks about the difficult situation on the front line, thanks allies, explains that ammunition is the most critical one. He talks very respectively about Zaluzhny. He talks about the fact that Ukraine has found some internal resources that they can reuse at the front line, therefore not being as dependent on the mobilization, though mobilization law is coming, and once it's signed, I will guide you through it, what's changes. But the most important thing is at the end, is where it talks about the fact that Ukrainians have been adapting Western technologies that they have been receiving. Some Ukrainian production have been adapting, for example, M777 howitzers to be produced in Ukraine, together with ammunition. They're more producing their Bogdana self-propelled howitzers. Ukrainians are not only receiving the help from the allies, they are also engineering that help, they're adapting, and that is the key point. Ukrainian industry is going up. Ukrainian industry in investing in itself. Now, I know obviously that Russia is also investing very, very heavily, and they're using a lot of the money that they were paying to them for their goods and produce and so on. It's a long talk, but Ukrainians are not standing in place. It's not that Ukrainians is just taking the hits and not responding. They are doing, and we need to support that. And the best way to support it right now, while Ukrainians are rebuilding, while the European allies are trying to build long-term support to support Ukrainian cause, I call on you to help us do the same. We've running right now the campaign with patches with the NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade to get a truck, a NAFO truck 2.0 with the anti-drone defense on it. We are already almost at 11,000 in, so get yourself the patch for this campaign, one or the other or both. That would be nice, and do a good cause. Help support Ukraine. Let's donate. Let's get the truck to Ukrainian armed forces, because the trucks are always needed. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. I'm glad to be back. Not everything is lost. Don't despair. It's gonna be fine. Trust in Ukraine. We need to also trust in our European allies and our other forces. We are strong. We are powerful. We need to believe in our power, and we need to make sure that Ukrainians feel that that power is working to support them. Slava Ukraini, guys, and I'll see you next time.
I see